This is the Leadership in Insurance podcast, brought to you by FinPro Search Partners.
Insurance companies are businesses and they need to look for the long term and be sustainable.
We went from 0 to 1 and now it's going from 1 to 100.
Insurance as a concept, as a kind of service, is brilliant. The execution is what we're looking at now.
I think the companies that are going to succeed are the ones that are going to understand and master the art of intent.
When we talk about innovation, we lean too heavily to think about technology and we don't think about creating a culture of innovation.
I think innovation is essentially continuous improvement of existing processes and platforms and product.
Right? It's got to be easy. It's got to be seamless.
Hello and welcome to the Leadership in Insurance podcast. I'm your host, Alex Pezold, and I'm very lucky today to be joined by Alex, who is co-founder and CEO of, Agentech. We were just having that discussion, but we're going to go with Agentech. Alex, how are you? And let's clarify where we're going to go with the kind of name of the company.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's great to be here. Alex Pezold, the company's name is, I pronounce it Agentech. However, we're easy. So if it's Agentech, then that's what it needs to be.
Talk to us about Agentech. What is it you guys do? What's the area in which you play?
We have developed a software platform that leverages artificial intelligence, specifically agents that leverage artificial intelligence to help in the insurance claims workflow. Basically, we're solving the labor problem in insurance by introducing capabilities that AI provides.
Amazing. Anyone who listens to this podcast regularly will know how much I'm obsessed with things that solve the claims solution because I used to work in claims. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I wanted to go back to the start of this business because this business is put together by a venture builder. And I don't think we've had anyone on that's been through that process. So I wondered if you might explain, at least the venture builder you went through and how that process comes about. And then, kind of just give us a bit of meat on the bones of what that process looks like. Sure,
you bet. So the venture studio that we were spun out of is a venture studio called 19 Days. Basically, what 19 Days is a problem-obsessed venture studio that looks for the most challenging problems to solve, and then they build a platform, most of the time in stealth mode. Nobody really realizes what they're doing. They build it in stealth mode with the team that they have through a partner, an innovation hub called GetWit, who has engineering, strategy, and marketing resources. So they go out and they do all the ethnography, they do all the research, they look at the different applications that they can develop in order to solve a problem. And once they find product market fit, they build, they complete the platform. The business is then spun out, and they hire people like myself and our president, Robin Robertson, in order to run the business and grow and scale it. So venture studios typically are their own funds. They've raised millions of dollars in order to support the creation of these platforms, and then help the platforms grow at least to the point where they're either not profitable, but making money, or they are able to raise money because they are platform ready, and they have a customer or two that are paying.
I've seen, the reason I was particularly interested, I've seen a lot more of this approach being taken, that sort of venture studio environment of like the advertising. I mean, I find it fascinating on LinkedIn. There'll be an advert for a CEO for a business that exists, that is in its nascent, in some are equity only, and there's all sorts of kind of variations on it. But I've seen it pop up a lot in the space, and seen it pop up a lot more recently. So kind of probably says something about the fundraising environment. But I don't want to digress too much away from you and your specific business. You mentioned Robin there. We've actually had her on the We Are Resource Women podcast. It was a great episode. How much does team play in your decision to kind of make the leap to do this? Because obviously you're bringing people together in this kind of venture studio environment. How much did that kind of team make that decision for you?
So, that's a great question. The venture studio leveraged our CTO, who worked for GetWit, the group that did the ethnography, the engineering, the marketing, the early phases of the business. So he, because of his institutional knowledge over the last year, 18 months of researching this business, decided he wanted to switch over to Agentech to keep the ball rolling. The team. So what was interesting is the Venture Studio, 19 days, conducted interviews with a variety of different people. Based on my experience of exiting a cybersecurity business, building and exiting a cybersecurity business here in Oklahoma, had a 9-figure exit, which was outstanding for the state, one of the largest tech exits in the state. But my neighbor across the street, Robin Robertson, did virtually the same thing with WeGoLook and the gig economy for field adjusters in the claims workflow, right? So she built it, exited it, and she and I have known each other. I know that she's the belle of the ball in the insurtech arena. I'm the nerd with the propeller hat that spins around, understands the technology. So, between she and I, we wanted to work together. I would not have jumped into this venture without her. And then tangentially, like having Spencer see, the horsepower that we were building from a leadership team wanting to come over was just further validation that, the leadership team we were putting together for this business is pretty meaningful.
Brilliant. So you knew each other before. It wasn't the venture studio put you together. I always assumed that you just happened to be neighbours. Lucky coincidence.
Indeed.
Yeah, brilliant. Talk to us about the technology then. Like, how does Agentech work from a sort of practical perspective?
Sure. It's actually one of the more fascinating projects I've ever worked on. And the reason why I say that is because the technology is so new. LLMs have been around for 24 months, depending on who you talk to, 18 months, 36, whatever that number is. But what we're doing is creating digital twins. It's called agentic design or agentic development. So the very elementary example that I use whenever I'm explaining what we're doing is if you've ever seen the movie Despicable Me and all the little minions. So we're creating a whole bunch of little minions that are basically digital agents that perform very specific functions in a workflow. So in the claims workflow, whether it's first notice of loss, triage, claim profile creation, field adjusting, file review, claim closure, payment, appeals, whatever that is, there's probably 10 to 12 different phases of a claim in the insurance space. And what we're doing is building agents across that entire workflow. So rather than being vertically integrated, like saying, hey, we're going to do one thing very well in this vertical, we're saying the claims workflow spans across all the lines of business in insurance. The claims workflow is not too different based on the different lines of business. So what we're doing is building these agents that, basically are purpose built to perform a specific task. And what this does is they're able to do it more accurately and more quickly than what a human being can do it in. So you take, for example, creating a claim profile, hundreds of pages of unstructured data. You can push that through a LLM and create a claim profile that is segmented, has the categories that are necessary, has all the salient information that's necessary to create a claim. That takes a person roughly, depending on which line of business you're in, you can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes. Well, we're doing it in 30 seconds to 90 seconds. So we're really accelerating the opportunity for the desk or the field to take these claim profiles, decision on them, and move on to the next, right? Because at the end of the day, particularly if you're dealing with like a pet or you're dealing with workman's comp, you're dealing with people, and these decisions need to be made more quickly. And then you get into other lines of business, for example, property and casualty, auto. It's the same, kind of the same situation. Now, the urgency behind making those decisions doesn't have to happen as quickly, but you get into surge events like hailstorms, hurricanes, whatever the case may be. The backlog and the necessity to make it through these claims as quickly as they can with as few people as they have is also a very critical portion of solving the policyholders' challenges whenever it comes to these perils that they're dealing with. So the angle that we're going after is solving the labor problem. And one thing that we like to point out is that we don't do any of the decisioning on the claim. We're simply creating a digital workforce that is going to take care of all the boring, monotonous, error-prone tasks and processes within the workflow, automating those so the human can actually decision, pay attention, look at the most critical elements of a claim and make sure the insured and the insurer are properly, adjudicated, if you will. That's in theory, what our goal is. We've seen, quite a bit of success and interest already with just the few areas that we are offering. So it's been fun to build this platform.
You touched on quite a few classes of business there. I just kind of wanted to go back and clarify. Was there a specific class of business you started with, and then just to broaden that out, what lines of business are you currently operating within with the technology?
Sure. So interestingly, when the venture studio was looking at, hey, let's look at the veterinary health space, they were trying to solve more of a veterinary health problem than they were an insurance problem. But they found out very quickly that you look at pet insurance, you look at it's only 4 to 7% saturated in the United States, growing at a 23% CAGR. They deal with massive amounts of unstructured data. There's no standardization within the pet insurance space, like there are, for example, auto, property and casualty, workman's comp. Those are all very standardized. I say standardized. They have standards and guidelines that govern how they adjudicate claims. Well, a claim in the pet insurance space isn't even underwritten until the claim comes in. So is it wellness? If it's wellness, then that's probably like a auto processing, like, hey, wellness falls, a wellness claim falls really squarely underneath the umbrella of a policy. Moving on down the road, let's look at injury and accident and like really pay attention to those claims. So what's happening is, as the pet insurance space is growing in the United States, trying to adjudicate those claims from a labor standpoint is really, really problematic. The reason why that is because if you are looking at veterinary health, you can't really take a person off the street and say, okay, you need to learn all about dogs and cats, their anatomy, the ailments that they may face. That's actually a tall order. So what's happening in the pet insurance space is they're going out and hiring vet techs away from veterinarian clinics. Those vet techs now are adjudicating claims. Well, there's only so many of those. And most of the vet techs, while it's more money, their purpose and what they've gone to school for is actually to help with pets directly, like handling them, working with them, healing them, treating them. They're not really designed to want to sit behind a desk adjudicating claims all day. So you have a real labor problem in the pet insurance space. Mm-hmm. You look at a lot of the pet insurance businesses, they are carriers. Their backlog for claims is extremely long. And so our goal is, now you're dealing with an organism, you're dealing with a dog or a cat. And what we want to do is help the carriers make it through their claims more quickly. And the best way that we can do that is taking all of the unstructured data, non-standard data, and creating these claim profiles for the desk to use. And we create the profile and format it such that the carrier can tell us exactly how they want to see it, what categories, ear, nose, throat, muscular, skeletal, whatever the case may be. And then we're organizing the data within those different categories. So anybody that's working the desk, whether it's a vet tech or whether it's just the average everyday person adjudicating a claim, they can see very clearly what's going on based on the claim, based on the policy, and now this claim profile, see where things map out and understand where coverage exists and where it does not exist. And they can do that. We're taking that entire process probably down to around 15 minutes instead of 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes. So pet insurance is ripe with opportunity, and we've identified that gadget insurance, home warranty, travel insurance, workman's comp. There's 5 or 6 of these verticals that have very similar characteristics as far as how quickly claims need to be processed, their growth rates, the challenges they're experiencing from a labor standpoint. So those are the verticals that we actually want to spend a whole lot of time on, because at the end of the day, the goal of making sure that claims are processed, more quickly, without, having to scale a business unreasonably, gives the carrier, in theory, the opportunity to grow without adding substantial costs from a labor standpoint. Mm-hmm. So hopefully in time, they see the efficiencies that we deliver, policy premiums will come down, and we'll make insurance a lot more affordable in a variety of different ways.
Mm. Yeah, that's one thing that I was thinking about as you would discuss, you were making that point, was just ultimately, we'll come on to this in a second, but sort of claims is the biggest spender from any insurer, and obviously that's the paying out of claims, but also kind of the processing of it because it's such a large part component. Ultimately, we should be able to do things that because pet insurance has spiraled in terms of cost is my understanding. I don't have a pet, so I haven't got insurance for one, but I have some very unhappy friends who talk about the cost of their pet insurance, and we are kind of we kind of push at things that sometimes are just all about growing the industry, and claims is one that can have the biggest impact because it's this larger spend. I was gonna come to it later, but we've got a question specifically about that. I mean, so claims is the biggest spend in the insurance industry. I know you're sort of essentially new to the sector, but it really surprised me on how investments seemed quite slow. We went distribution first. So we were like, how do we sell more insurance to more people rather than going, we've got this massive spend. How do we kind of chip away at that? What do you take from that? I say part of my kind of off the top of my head psychology on that is that kind of first mover principle. So, technology investments in a sector, you want to go after growth. That's what you want to go after. And it's just less exciting to go after cost and sort of reduce cost. It's kind of so if you work in venture, it's almost anti what your natural reaction will be. It's like well, you want to invest in things that grow from the cost. That's my kind of theory on it, but I'm just surprised it's taken so long for claims to get the investment. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
So I mean, it's really interesting with the foundational models that have been released. A number of applications for I mean, it's just well known that what they do very well, what they don't do very well. From an investment standpoint, a third of all capital invested in 2024 went into AI companies, right? A lot of them are super exciting. They have the SaaS model, or you look at some of the concepts. For example, Chamath Palihapitiya, a billionaire out in Silicon Valley, did 80/90. His business is designed to take very manual processes that AI can perform and create a business that has 80% of the functionality with 90% of the discount, right? So you're looking at like this revolutionary technology. You can build perpetuative platforms that aren't going to be like traditional software platforms. They'll self-repair, they will modernize, they will do all of this stuff on their own. So venture capital pouring into the AI space it makes a ton of sense. But whenever you focus on the insurance vertical and the different lines of business within insurance, there are really like natural places to attack. The labor budget is one of them because technology adoption in the insurance space is very, very slow. In fact, it was interesting in my former business, getting a contract done in the insurance space took 12 to 18 months. What we're seeing today is not only is there a lot of capital being thrown at businesses like Agentech to help solve problems in the insurance space, the adoption of these technologies because the insurance space knows they have a problem. They know they have a labor problem. For them, the number of times that I've heard the carriers say, or the ones that we're talking to or working with, it's we can't scale because we don't have speed. And if we, only can increase speed by hiring more people, then that's a very inefficient way for us to scale. So what technology exists and what are you doing that's going to help us scale as a business, process claims more quickly so we don't get negative reviews online, process claims more quickly so our policyholders are happy and we don't have abandonment. So to answer, I guess that's a lot of information in a roundabout way of saying the investment. What I like to see is that venture capital, private equity are pouring into the AI space and they're looking at it saying, listen, this doesn't have to be a SaaS platform that is going to be a hyperscaler. Is that their goal? You bet. Who wouldn't want to invest in a company like that? But they are looking at it saying, it's really interesting that you're solving a significant problem that nobody's really targeted to this day, and you're doing it in a way that it's more quickly adopted than technology typically is in an industry that doesn't really adopt technology that quickly.
Yeah, I think the specific nature of the business is really interesting. The money pouring into AI is really, fever pitch is one way of looking at it. There's no part of me that doesn't believe it's incredibly helpful and that's the evolution and future of business. But And there's a skepticism for me whenever there's that kind of velocity of investment in any market, where it's like everyone's just woken up and realised that it's money follows money. It's the flow, and that's the way it is. And so sometimes the kind of we had a blind, even in the insurtech space, there was a lot of like blind investment at one point, which was just piling into businesses that from a sort of insurance expert perspective, you kind of took a step back and said that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And unfortunately, some of those have fallen by the wayside. And I think the AI space was interesting to me that you kind of you concentrated on AI. And is that how you think of the business? Is that the business is an AI business, but just happens to serve a very specific vertical, rather than be an insurance business that operates with AI integrated? Is it's a subtle distinction, but is that the way that you look at Agentech?
It is. I mean, so the platform that we've built can service any number of verticals.
Right.
So we already have interest in the oil and gas space. We already have interest in the aerospace and aviation space, which is really interesting because any document intensive, like data intensive environment where you have to manually sort through and sift through massive amounts of data in order to make sense of it, decision on it, whatever the business use case. Artificial intelligence is a great way to perform that task in a very, accurate and speedy manner. I look at where we can go next, but we don't want to be distracted. So, for example, you see a massive amount of people entering the space that we're in, whether it's claims or underwriting. They're leveraging AI. The goal that we have as a business is not to get too distracted and start trying to solve too many problems. To be everywhere is to be nowhere. So we're staying very focused on the claims workflow. We will step outside of that at some point, but a lot of the businesses that have been invested in 2024, 2023, they will go out of business because they either are too early, they're not specific enough from a product standpoint, they're going to run out of cash too quickly. And so one of the, some of the lessons learned that both Robin and I agree on are we have to be capital efficient. We have to stay focused on exactly what the product market fit is. And we do that through a unique customer acquisition strategy where we're building products with, our design partners and design customers that they say with specificity, this is the problem that we're trying to solve. This is why it's a problem. And then we can look across the industry and say, actually, this is replicable. So if we're building it for them, we could take this and rinse and repeat across the entire, whatever line of business and insurance that we want. We're building an agent that performs a specific function that solves a problem from an accuracy or a timing standpoint. So while we are going to stay very focused in this space, we are going to grow very carefully, which means it's a little bit slower, which means VC and PE are probably going to look at us and say, you should have grown faster. And the answer is not really. There's too much nuance in this workflow to miss it. And if you miss it, then you have a half-baked product. And if you have a half-baked product, well, you're going to be vaporware before you know it, because people can catch up with technology today. Being outpaced or people growing more quickly, it's a land grab. And as long as you are developing a whole solution, you are probably going to be okay. But if you're building something that only does 50% of what's needed, then good luck sticking around. And so our philosophy has been, we are going to create a whole solution across the entire workflow.
I think a lot of the AI companies that I'm slightly skeptical about are the ones that are so broad. Because we've been approached, as you can imagine, there are lots of mundane elements of being a recruitment professional. There is a lot of it is very boring, and it's doing the hard yards, it's doing the research. And there are some tools that we've seen, and a lot of the challenges we've had adopting technology. And I would say even as simple as we have a CRM system that we use. Whenever it's been so broad and so bespokeable, it's a business challenge to get adoption, because really, I don't want to completely build my own workflow. I really don't. I mean, I want to have options. I want to kind of, to a certain extent, but the things that I've struggled to get my business to adopt, or in businesses that I've worked in the past, have been when the options are almost infinite. And actually, that's not entirely helpful. It's, if there is a replicable flow, it's like, I'm sure my recruitment company does some things that are slightly different to other recruitment companies, but largely speaking, the flow will be the same. It's just we might use different terminology. Claim is a claim is a claim. A pet claim and a property claim, they're different in elements, but really the kind of flow of that's going to be quite similar. And I imagine some of the kind of more broader AI offerings that are saying, oh, we can build an agent for anything. It's like, well, you can, but I think that means there's a huge burden on me as a purchaser to kind of put a lot of that in. So I don't want to do that. I want that off the shelf, and I think that improves adoption. And it sounds like that's some of the mentality of the Agentech business.
No, it is. There's specificity in this workflow, and from a broader standpoint, there's riches in the niches. That's one of my favorite quotes. You look at this workflow, you look at the agents we've already got hundreds of agents that are performing tasks in this workflow, and I can only imagine that there's going to be far more of those that we're going to create, because whenever you actually do the ethnography on the business or on the task that's being completed and asking the very in-depth questions about why did you click on this, or why are you copying and pasting there, why are you asking a lot of the whys and understanding the nuance of what goes into this platform, or like what goes into the task that we are trying to automate. If you're only going to perform part of that, then the person still has to perform the other part. And what that does is it creates more back and forth. And what we want to do is just say, listen, the whole thing's complete. Here's what we need from you. Here's what you're going to get at the end. It's 95% plus accurate compared to what we've seen with some of the profiles, for example, in the pet insurance space. They're 70% accurate, but that leaves 30% of uncertainty that is risk to the carrier. Well, let's get those averages up. Give us the data, help us understand. What we want to do is make the best of the information that we can gather from our customers and build the agents that are, that will perform tasks virtually identical to how a human being would do it.
Alex, I think it's a great place to close on. Thank you so much for coming on. I really love this space. I think there's loads to do. I think you've got a brilliant product, and yeah, I love the specific nature of the solution. And it feels like AI that we can actually use, and some of it definitely isn't usable just yet. You've been a great guest. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Alex, thank you.